wait. And baby, I'm TFC till I die.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Toronto Till I Die podcast. This is a show for Toronto FC fans talking all things highs and lows about our beloved Toronto Football Club. But this week we are going all in on the Canadian men's national team. On this episode, we're discussing a recap of the 2-0 win against Qatar in Vienna. We're previewing the big friendly against Qatar tomorrow. We are going to name the 22 are pretty much already locked, but we're going to name a few extra players heading to Qatar and who we think will be joining John Herdman and the boys on the plane. And I have some fun with stickers. I'll discuss that later. But as per usual, we were with Mike Singh and Jeffrey P. Nesker, my co-host. Welcome back, Mr. Nesker.
There it is.
There it is. How's it going, guys? I went to all the trouble to put my hoodie behind me to get one TFC logo in, but I didn't do it well enough because it's completely blocked, so I just blurred my background, which is probably a good idea as I'm at work and that could be industrial espionage. So let's just pretend that it's the old school TFC logo in my apartment as opposed to over here.
Fair
Jeff,
enough.
we missed you, buddy. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I mean, Newell's like as per usual, and I was like, what kind of usual? I've been gone for like 2 weeks.
But I saw you just on the week. I just saw you.
Yeah, TFC 2, the most adorable pitch invasion in the history of all global soccer. There wasn't a single person over the age of 10 that invaded the pitch that game. It was pretty fantastic.
Did you guys invade the pitch? You buried the lead.
I wanted to, and I was soused enough that I would have had someone not stopped me. I'll be honest, guys. I'm going to be playing catch up today. The most I've seen of the Canada-Qatar game was like brief glimpses down here while I was cutting, and I watched the highlights this morning, but I chose poorly. I chose the 1 minute, 22 second One Soccer highlights, so it's almost like I haven't seen the game at all. So, my
That's
usual.
right. What's new, Jeff? What's new?
What are you talking about? I am usually the most prepared person on this show. Today, however, I cede that to you two fellas. So, yeah, let's roll. Let's get right into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick thing. For those who don't know, Jeffrey P. Nesker is cutting a movie right now. So when he says cutting, it's about a movie. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. True.
Be very.
Shop talk.
Yeah. Exactly.
I skipped right into shop talk without giving anybody the benefit of the
Exactly. And yes, I did see this guy on Saturday. It was great to catch up with him at BMO Field as Toronto FC 2 moved on in the Eastern Conference. But we're not talking about that right now. We are talking CAN men's national team. 2-0 win over Qatar last week, or on the weekend, in Vienna. I think comfortable is the right word, gentlemen. I'll see the floor to you, but I was kind of surprised on how comfortable the win was a little bit. I knew we probably should be Qatar, but I was surprised at the ease at which that win came. Am I a little crazy for thinking that?
No, I think you're bang on, but it was very comfortable for Canada, and I think that was the response that the team needed after a worrying window, an underwhelming window in June, right? I think a lot of pressure was on Canada to come out of the gates and get this right and remind everyone, hey, we're the kings of CONCACAF. We deserve to be here, and we're going to make some noise. So I think they came out with the statement, and what I was really impressed with is heading into the game, and I watched more film on Qatar than I'd probably like to admit. But what I know about Qatar and what I learned about Qatar is that they were a very potent attack, dangerous in the counterattack. They really didn't let an opportunity slip by. They were quick to take shots, quick to take chances, and even dating back to the Gold Cup in the summer when they went against the U.S. in the semifinals, they looked like the better team on that day. and created a lot more chances. Now, Canada did an excellent job, and I was expecting a wide open game, but Canada did an excellent job at sort of stifling everything that Qatar really had to offer, and that was from the keeper out in Milan Borjan. I think he did a great job at slowing play down when it needed to be slowed down, holding onto the ball at some times where we've been prone to some pretty poor goalkeeping, and I think he did a really good job there. And of course, the back line was excellent in that regard. And I have to give a shout out to Sam Piet as well, who did again an excellent job at playing that role, that deep lying midfield role behind Stefan Eustáquio and freeing up Canada moving forward. So yeah, I think that's probably my biggest takeaway from the match overall. Obviously, they got off to a really good start, which helped them and kind of took the life out of Qatar early on. And just big picture, I also think people were kind of overrating Qatar a little bit heading into this matchup.
I think a lot of that had to do with the Gold Cup, right? Like the Gold Cup run they made.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But taking a step back, Qatar is probably the worst team at the FIFA World Cup heading into the tournament in a couple months. And I keep thinking back to that draw and how close Canada was to potentially, having Qatar in their group, and keep thinking, man, please Group A. Obviously, it didn't work out that way, but it would have been nice to know that you're heading to a World Cup where you at least enter as heavy favorites against the team. But yeah, overall big response by Canada.
Yeah. My biggest takeaway was Mikey Singh chose violence on the Bird app directly after the Canada 2-0 win. Just went out guns blazing, looking for fights, trying to pick fights.
I still have people thinking I was serious about that. I still have my mentions going off randomly.
David, the Bird app is not meant for subtlety, man. It's either you're all the way or you're not in at all.
Let's be honest. There's a glimmer of truth in there. You weren't being 100% facetious. There's maybe a 20% glimmer of truth in there.
No. No. I gotta add more. I gotta add more exclamation marks and question marks on my tweet just to show that I'm being sarcastic.
Indeed. Well, like I mean, with my limited knowledge, look, the highlights were 1 minute and 30 seconds, and it looked like Canada had the game in the bag. 20 minutes into the 90s. So I agree with everything you're saying there. There was some excitement at the end with the almost chance for Kamal Miller, but other than that, it looked like the game was really exciting for 20 minutes and then just really, really boring for the last 60, 70 minutes. I don't know if that's apt or if I'm just guesstimating based on watching 2 minutes of game footage.
Yeah, I think, look, the early goal helped. It really calmed everything down for Canada. And I think at that point, there was the sort of breath and, okay, let's put our foot on the ball and dominate things. And that's really how the first half went, right? They put their foot on the ball and they completely dominated Qatar for the most part. Like they had a few sort of counters and their game plan was to sit back and counter. It was clear. I tweeted on the day that what a time to be alive that an international opponent outside of CONCACAF parked the bus against Canada. Like what Twilight Zone world are we living in now? But that's the reality, right? That the potency of the Canadian attack has reached ears far and wide. And then people know that this team isn't a pushover and that they can attack you. And look at the first goal, it's a probably not the best cross we're ever going to see from Sam Adekugbe, but Kyle Larin, does what Kyle Larin does, even when he's not playing week in and week out, right? Just sort of bullies the center back and out jumps him for the ball, really, and just puts it in the back of the net, heads it in the back of the net. And in the second goal, I mean, well worked with sort of Jonathan David there to clean up after I think Alphonso Davies had a chance to slot it home. And at that point, it was clear sailing from there. And Mike made a really great point about Sam Piet being able to sort of help mop up in the back and allow Stefan Eustáquio to be Stefan Eustáquio and get the ball to the right people at the right time. I think also a couple things that I took away from the game. One, Alistair Johnson is now, if it wasn't in your mind as undroppable, he is undroppable now. You cannot drop him out of the squad.
Yeah, no, he's the best defender on the squad.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't drop him now. And I was actually impressed with Junior Hoylett playing as a right wing back. I know he's doing that a bit at Reading. So he's getting more reps there. That's an option for John Herdman at the World Cup. It's flexibility. It's something that he clearly wants in his team, where guys can move here and there. I don't think it's not your first option, obviously, but it is an option available to him if he wants to go in that round. And Junior Hoylett was probably playing there because Tajon Buchanan is on a minutes restriction from Club Brugge in terms of him recovering from injury. But I think those are the two biggest takeaways I take from the game. The performance of Alistair Johnston back there, and I think Junior Hoylett putting in a pretty good shift as a right wing back.
He looked sharp, Junior Hoylett did. I saw him more as a right mid as opposed to a right wing back.
I think that was the plan. I think structurally that was the plan when you're defending, but we had so much of the ball. He essentially was a right midfielder.
Yeah. And again, like he's the one guy on this men's national team, along with Stefan Estacio, that's just, I think, close to the level of international football where he's good enough to play in between the lines and play with the ball at his feet and make certain passes that I think just other guys can't make at the top levels. So he brings that quality into the team. And yeah, I thought he looked really sharp on the day. He's obviously in form with Reading. He's playing a very important role for that team, who is doing very well in the championship, and he earned the minutes. And obviously captaining the side with Atiba out, I think Junior Hoylett's going to be very useful for Canada, whether he starts, whether he comes off the bench in the World Cup. He's going to be an important figure. So yeah, his versatility is just another plus in terms of what he brings to the table. Yeah, in terms of other standouts, I thought Sam Adekugbe had a really good game. And he, if you want to talk about undroppable, I think he's a guy who has become essentially undroppable within this team. And it gives you the option of pushing Alphonso Davies up further now that you know that you have some security behind Sam Adekugbe. And one guy whose spot may be in jeopardy as a result of all of this is our guy, Richie Larea. We know that he's not going to be playing football down the stretch here as TFC are eliminated from the playoffs. And based on comments from John Herdman, that's a worry. That's a concern for him. Now, of course, he's going to go to Qatar and he's going to make that squad and he's going to play some minutes, whether that be off the bench or maybe starting a game. But I'm not sure if he's in Canada's best 11 at this moment. I can't say for certain.
No, I probably wouldn't say that he would be. I think we saw maybe without Mark-Anthony Kaye, the best 11 pretty much against Qatar for the most part. Well, fair enough.
Yeah,
fair
that
enough.
was Asian, yeah.
Yeah.
But my boy Junior Hoylett, you got to get him on the field. I mean, I invested in his kit, so anytime you can get J Junior David Hoylett on the pitch, I'm a happier person. But Tajon's also pretty good, I suppose.
Exactly, but that's pretty much your strongest 11 right there, right, for the most part that we saw. So Richie will play a role, I think, when you do want to play a back four. In those moments, we may see that against Uruguay, which we'll talk about in a moment. But
hey, and Atiba, sorry,
right,
I just throw it out there. Atiba for Sam Piet,
but as in the 11,
absolutely.
What about Oso? Where does Oso go? Oso for Sam Piet.
Okay.
Listen, I know Sam Piet put in a fantastic shift.
I wouldn't say Sam Piet starts. I would probably still put Mark-Anthony Kaye above.
Well, yeah, we forgot about Mac, right?
I don't think so. I'm not above
we'll talk about this when we talk about the lineup, when we talk about the roster
Mm-hmm.
going to Qatar, because we've talked about our 22 and we're pretty set on that, but it's the extra spots. But we'll talk about that in a sec. A couple of things out of this match. One, were you guys surprised to maybe not see some of the bubble players get into the game, like Koleosho, Corbanu, a Waterman? Were you surprised to not see them maybe get minutes? Maybe not start, but get minutes.
Yeah, well, when you think about who came into the game, I would throw a couple of those in that bubble category. So obviously you want to see what you had in Charles Andreas Brim. Just because you really haven't seen that at the senior level with this current crop of players. You needed to get Mark Anthony K minutes just because he hasn't had a good stretch of football over these last couple of months. So you need to get him in there in some capacity. Ismail Kone, again, I'd
Yep.
throw him in a tier above those fringe players, but he last time he was at Canada camp, he did not go very well. So I think it was important to get him minutes. Liam Millar, bubble player, left wing back, right? So he got some minutes, and then I can't think off the top of my head who the
Ugbo, but
EK,
I don't know.
EK
He's not a
Ugbo.
bubble player though, but
Yeah. But I still think you want to see what you have in him. So like this is what John Herdman was talking about afterwards. It's that there's tough decisions that he's gonna have to make. And I'm not even talking about just roster cuts. It's about who's going to be seeing some game time here, because you only have 1 and 2 if you think ahead to Japan. 2 matches left where you're gonna be able to get some guys that you need to get game time.
Yep.
Now, one of those games is against Uruguay. I'm assuming he wants to try and put out his best 11 to potentially just see what he has and how his team stacks up against a competition like Uruguay, because you just haven't seen that yet. And maybe, it'll be far and few between for it's going to be tough to get minutes, give guys who are French players minutes in that match. Now, I do expect the players that I mentioned, aside from maybe an Ismail Kone and Mark Anthony K, I expect the Corbenu's and the Kolioshos to come off the bench as opposed to the Liam Millars of the world. So, we'll see some rotation, I think, a little bit more into the Uruguay match. But I was surprised that he decided to, I would say, the weaker players didn't get minutes as opposed to.
I agree, because I mean Japan cleaned the United States clock. We're not playing bubble players against Japan for the tune-up match. My surprise is Waterman. Obviously, he's called up because we have a spot for a center back. This was supposed to be his audition for the bus to Qatar, or the plane to Qatar. So the fact that he didn't get any game action in this game out of the 3 tune-ups, I think is a surprise. I expected him to be starting this game. I just don't know what that means for the future, because do you really want to blood center back against Uruguay? Absolutely not. Are you going to give Waterman garbage time minutes? Who cares? That's not a proper audition for the player. And then Japan has sort of proved themselves to be less of a minnow kind of tune-up than we anticipated. So where does Waterman get his minutes to sort of prove himself before the big dance?
Well, the one thing I'll say to that is when you look at Ismail Kone, and one of the things John Herdman talked about is not necessarily the game that he had against Panama, but the whole camp overall that he had. And that included obviously training sessions and everything like that. So you get a decent impression of what these guys can do just from working with them day in, day out. So it's not like they absolutely need to get minutes. And if they don't get minutes, they're not coming. There is a possibility that you still impress in camp. But as we're talking about this, as I mentioned, like 3 games, now 2 games left. That's all you have with your best 11 to prepare for the World Cup. And you already lost at a window in June, essentially. Yeah. So it's about this time getting your team right and ready as opposed to auditioning new faces. Now, the one thing that maybe Herdman is a step ahead of us on is a guy like Luca Koleosho, who is yet to commit fully to Canada. Bringing him on against Uruguay is a lot more enticing than bringing him on against Qatar. So you bring a guy on against Uruguay, you show him, hey, like you're going to be a significant part of this team. We trust you in these types of matches. How cool is it to play against a team like Uruguay? When we go to the World Cup, you're going to be playing against Belgium. You're going to be playing against Croatia. Now you're playing against Uruguay. Like this is the big time. So maybe Herdman is thinking it in that terms, in terms of selling the player on Canada overall.
For sure. I think that I'm more surprised probably about Koleosho than I was about Waterman or Corbanu. Like I think for Waterman, it's more of a show me what you can do at camp, right? And if you get into a game, great. But I agree with Mike. Like, this is the time where your 11 are going to have to play the majority of the games and get the majority of the minutes right now, because they need those reps together in order to get ready for the World Cup. I mean, yes, the game was comfortable against Qatar, but there were moments at the back where there was still a little bit of a disconnect there.
So why not bring Waterman on? I mean, that screams for the audition. Let me turn this around and ask you a question. Are you comfortable? Would you be comfortable with Waterman making the trip to Qatar? Like what, 15 minutes of first team action? Would you be comfortable having him play center back in any of our 3 group stage games as a starter or a substitute? And would it be fair to the player? I mean, maybe they're amazing in training, but that's a tough ask for someone, especially at the CPL level, who's now in not even a roundabout way representing that league and its aspirations for player development. I mean, what if they pull a Godinho, an old school Godinho at the back, and Morocco gets an own goal on us because of some gap? That is a terrible situation for the CPL, for obviously for the men's national team and our World Cup aspirations. I feel like it's a missed opportunity. If there was a game in these 3 to start Waterman, it was the Qatar game. So I am confused about that.
I would be comfortable because he's played beside Kamal Miller and Alistair Johnson his entire season, right? He's familiar with that aspect of things, at least.
That's fair, Mike. Right? That's fair.
And if you look at the replacement, well, if you look at the replacement before we pass it to Mike, like, is Waterman that much of a downgrade over Daniil Henry? Is he that much of a downgrade over?
Daniil's my boy, man. Daniil brings something that I don't think Waterman brings, which is chaos. And sometimes you need a chaos merchant, right?
Well, to answer your question, Jeff, giving away my list a little bit, I don't have Joel Waterman going. That doesn't mean it's necessarily based on form, right? I think it's mainly based on who's been working with this group of players for the longest in terms of their sort of national team career. And I know that isn't always the fairest way to do things. And a lot of people will be like, you just take the most informed players to the World Cup. John Herdman has proven that loyalty matters to him. And from that perspective, I would not have a problem with Joel Waterman going to the World Cup. If he goes, that's not to me an issue. I just don't think this particular window is his time, if that makes sense.
I would argue that had he started or seen significant minutes during the Qatar game, you might have a different opinion on his spot on the plane.
Fair.
Yeah, but then it's like, what are you prioritizing? Are you prioritizing your 5th center back, or are you prioritizing your 11 getting minutes?
That is the question.
It's 11 getting minutes.
Uruguay, it's 11 getting minutes, and that's just clear as day.
They played their full 11 against Iran on Friday and lost, by the way, to Iran. So, from that perspective, it is about getting your 11 minutes. Like, if you're looking around even at Nations League, I know Nation League technically is a competition, but like, you're seeing, these national teams play their preferred 11s at least to start, right? So the idea is that it's about getting minutes ahead of the World Cup. And if you then have the opportunity to get more fringe players into the squad, getting minutes, just getting their feet wet in international competition, then fine. But that's really the goal here. I expect the full 11 to play against Uruguay and play the majority of the game.
So do I.
Unless it's a blowout either way, right? So from that perspective, I think that's more important. That said, yes, of course, as fans, we want to see the Koleoshos and the Corbenus and Watermans to see what might be next. But that's the point. They're next. The time for now is we got to play the players that are going to be part of this World Cup group right now.
That's fair.
Yeah. Couple of other points here from the game before we start to look ahead to Uruguay. Jonathan David's goal celebration. Ooh, baby. Sorry, wrong side. Yeah, I'm messing that up. There you go. Covering up the covering up the Nike logo on the goal. A lot being read into it, a lot not being read into it. I mean, I think there's a message there, ever it be so subtle or not subtle. But I just found it interesting that the players are now using games to sort of make those messages. I know he's an Adidas athlete. I know that's been brought up. But I mean, he was an Adidas athlete the last time and he didn't cover up the logo, right? So, it's interesting to watch the players sort of use their platform in terms of being on the pitch to make statements to Nike and maybe even to the CSA as well.
Strangely enough, that wasn't in the 1 minute 30-second highlight pack that I watched on YouTube.
Oh, they cut that quick.
Believe it.
They cut that quick.
So this is the first I'm hearing of it. How deliberate did it look? Like, could it be misunderstood as anything else?
I mean, the weirdest goal celebration was.
Go on my Twitter. You'll find it. Go on my Twitter.
Well, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it right now. Just I'll do it after the show.
He went like this. So unless again, weirdest goal celebration I'll ever see because
100% deliberate.
100% deliberate. Considering how soft spoken he is and how often it's mentioned that he, of the superstars on the Canadian squad, he's the most deliberate and soft spoken. I'd say that speaks volumes on the state of the locker room, and I think it's deserved. What team at the World Cup that Nike provides kits for, other than us, aren't getting new kits? Zero.
Yeah, but I mean,
I don't want to hear. I agree with you. The 2-year runway, et cetera, ad infinitum. Nobody expected Canada to be here ad nauseum. Nike has the power, when push comes to shove, to throw money at a problem and put something out there. Maybe it's not new kits. Maybe it's a anthem jacket or something. They've done sweet FA. So I can understand, and let's not get into the CSA shenanigans. He covered the logo, so let's just discuss that. He has a point. And if he puts egg on the face of our corporate overlords, so be it. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, he's got a very firm ground to stand on, right? I hope we use it as whiteboard material. Like we're wearing the same kits that we decimated the Octo in. Let's keep the flavor going for Qatar. But at the end of the day, he has a point, and at the end of the day, he's well within his rights to say, you guys effed up. It is what it is, right? Like, and I'm proud he did it. Why not? I want my guys to have some swagger.
Yeah, I'll take a little bit of a different angle on this. I liked what KJ said on the broadcast. I'm going to echo what essentially he was saying. And that was focusing on Jonathan David himself. And you mentioned it there, Jeff. Jonathan David's quite quiet, quite reserved. So I love the idea of him showing personality.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love that. And Jonathan David, if you look back at its history, he's one for celebrations and very meticulous, thought out celebrations. So 100% that this was intentional. It was absolutely it was absolutely in.
Yeah. Bye. That's my director, by the way. Anyway, go ahead.
Absolutely intentional, deliberate, and I think it was a message that was received. And I like the players using their platforms because oftentimes they don't get that chance. So the fact that they're now bringing it onto the pitch, I think it spoke volumes, and I think everyone took note of that. So mission accomplished, I guess.
Yeah, and look, and Jeff, you're saying don't bring in the soccer shenanigans, and look, the two are intertwined, right? They are so mixed together that doing that serves a dual purpose, right? This team is still playing 100%. Without an agreement going into this World Cup. Now that could get resolved before November. It sounds like it won't, or at least that they're going to put it off until after the World Cup to get it sorted out because they want to focus on the football, and I have to respect that. But it is kind of ridiculous that we're getting less than 2 months away from the World Cup. This thing has not been resolved yet between the players and the association. And there's a piece I'm thinking about working on after the World Cup about Are we going to learn from our prior mistakes after this World Cup? I know we're hosting one in coming in about 4 years. Are we going to learn our lessons from our mistakes? And I think the players are using their platform to highlight those issues that need to be addressed coming up to co-hosting a World Cup. I just wonder if we're going to actually heed those messages. That's where I'm coming from.
You raise a really interesting point, because not everybody gets to score goals in that locker room, right? So I'm wondering how much of this was Jonathan David and how much of this was a unified discussion. Maybe he took the initiative and figured out the minutia of it. But I'm wondering where does the line end from Jonathan David's own personal feelings on the issue and him deciding to be a mouthpiece for the rest of the locker room by consequence that he gets to score the goals, he gets to do the celebrations, the camera's going to be on him. So, it speaks to the brotherhood in the locker room that we've been touting for this whole run.
Yeah, I would say some people are probably really passionate about that, and I'm sure there are some people who are just like, yeah, whatever. I mean, we spoke to Jonathan Osorio.
Yeah, like any group, absolutely.
Yeah, we spoke to Jonathan Osorio like 2 weeks ago, and he was just like, yeah, it's a jersey, like whatever. Like he didn't really care that they weren't going to get new kits. But then obviously you see Jonathan David's celebration, you see Sam Adekube's comments. Like there's people out there who really care the fact they're not getting new jerseys. So yeah, as any issue, I'm sure that's divided. But the one thing I'm sure you'll find is that, as you mentioned, there's that brotherhood, and they're not gonna throw anyone else under the bus. But yeah, it should be. I mean, is this gonna cloud over them throughout the World Cup? Is this going to be a non-issue once the game gets kicked off, or is this still going to be a talking point, do you guys think, throughout the World Cup?
Oh, I think it will be a talking point. I mean, I don't know if they're going to do on-field protests or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that will necessarily happen. But do I think it will be a talking point in terms of, hey, there may not be a deal done, and hey, we still have all these issues? 100%. There will still be.
We're talking about two different things. Mike was bringing it very specifically to the kid situation. I do think the CSA thing is going to cast a pall until it's resolved, and I don't know if there is a resolution that will be satisfactory to all parties. It's already cast a pall. It will cast a pall.
But I don't think you can separate the two, right? I think the two are interlinked with each other, right? In ways. In a lot of different ways, both from a very contractual obligation perspective, but also from a CSB perspective, which we don't need to get into today, I
took Mike's question to be, are they going to bitch about not having new kits once they're in Qatar?
Sorry, no, I meant like the whole contract dispute.
Oh, no, they're professionals. They'll ignore it, but media will ask them about it because it's a good story and it doesn't have an ending yet. And I think it will be like a cloud or a shadow that follows this team around. But let's put it this way. If they win, who are we playing first? Belgium?
Yeah.
Yeah, if we win that game, nobody's talking about CSB. Everybody's talking about what are they going to do against Croatia. I don't know. I think they're going to be, or they're talking about what are they going to do against Croatia. And if we win against Croatia, what are they going to do against Monaco?
100%.
For sure, from a footballing perspective. But I think one thing, and we'll move on to Uruguay after this, but I think that it will shine a bigger light on the Canadian Soccer Association, and that's where the skeletons get exposed a little bit, right?
Is this bias because we're such homers? I mean, there's a lot of federations that are an absolute garbage fire, like a screaming garbage fire going into World Cup years. Do you remember if that was consistently the sort of, I'm thinking.
Well, yeah, take France back in what, 2010?
You're right.
Where they essentially went on strike, right? Like
100%.
Ghana's gone into World Cups and had disputes about pay and threatened not to play games because they were complaining about bonuses or bonuses that were promised. Like these things 100%. Happen in almost every World Cup where there is one or two teams that has an issue with their FA, right? So it's not new to the footballing world. It's new to Canada, right?
Yeah.
And that's something we haven't had to deal with because obviously we haven't had to deal with it for 40 years.
Yeah, really well said, Mike. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's, I mean, there's going to be time to talk about it. It will come up again, inevitably. But let's move on to the football on the field. Massive game tomorrow against Uruguay.
Can I interject for 1 second? We talked for 35 minutes about the Qatar game, and we didn't mention Alphonso Davies beyond in passing once, and I love that for us. I think that's fantastic.
He was Alphonso Davies. He was great.
Yeah, I just want to say that.
I mean, what else is there to say? He was great, But it does. But again, it does speak to this, and I'm going to bring this up here with the Uruguay game. It speaks to the fact that we have an 11. We know who's going to play this game, and we know who we're going to rely on. What a world a Canadian soccer national team fan lives in, that you can basically go into a game confident. I know what the 11 is going to be. I know who my players are who can win us a match, and we do have players on this 11 that can win us this match.
Testify.
Right. Absolutely. And it's a massive test for Canada. Like it is the test we had all been hoping for in the June window. Obviously, what happened, and we didn't get that. But here's now your test. This is the yardstick. This is the first of many yardsticks that's coming to this national.
Okay, I like that you qualified that. But are we over? What is it? What's the opposite? Yeah, are we overvaluing Uruguay? I mean, they did lose to Iran 1-0.
No, I don't think we are. Like we're like I'll say this: Canada's been great over this qualifying period. We're still a little bit Canada. Like we haven't proven anything yet on an international level outside of CONCACAF yet, right? So no, we can't underqualify that because Uruguay are teams that consistently compete in World Cups and consistently compete for Copa Americas, right? So this is and look, like if you look at the 11 that they played against Iran, it's still Darwin Nunez, Luis Suarez, and Palestiri up front, right? Like that's still an incredible.
Did you catch your typo on the rundown there, Luis Suarez?
Yeah,
he's my favorite. I love Luis Suarez. But again, they lost 1-0 to Iran. Now I haven't seen the highlights of that game because it
was a weird game. It was a weird. The whole pallor around the game. You can, if listeners can look it up online. There's articles about it in terms of Iran basically not allowing anybody to go watch the game. It was a bit weird because right now there's a lot of stuff going politically in Iran. But I mean, look, they did lose. It was a 1-0 loss. I didn't see any highlights. I don't think anybody saw highlights.
You just told us why exactly.
Yeah, right. So, but I mean, I still wouldn't necessarily qualify that as or Uruguay's on the downfall. No, I think it was a simple game as they treated it like a friendly. I think they'll actually be up for this game against Canada because there's probably some people out there who's thinking Uruguay might be getting a little older, a little slower, and this might be a fast team that can come against them. Whereas Uruguay still have a rep to maintain.
Mike, it looks like you got something to say. Go ahead.
Darwin Nunez. We haven't faced a player of Darwin Nunez's caliber yet, let alone the Valverdes and the Luis Suarez and the Bentancur. There's quality, more quality than Canada has ever come against in this stretch last 4 years. So this is by far and away Canada's biggest test. Uruguay is better than Mexico, is better than the United States, who have been Canada's biggest test so far. Yeah, I don't think that's really too much of a hot take or debate. Yeah, I think 100%. It's a different breed down there in South America, and you're going up against one of the top South American teams that have been perennial threats to win major tournaments. So, yes, this is the game I think we've all been waiting for as a measuring stick heading into the World Cup. Are they a Croatia? Are they a Belgium? In my opinion, no. But they're a step up and getting closer to that. They're a lot better than the Qatar team that we face, and I think this will be the first game then maybe one or two of the CONCACAF games during the qualifying run against Mexico that will see Canada play in what I believe is their ideal way of playing, which is a counterattacking team. I think Canada will concede possession to Uruguay, and I believe that they'll try and hit them off the counter because that's what we're going to see more of at the World Cup against the Belgians and Croatia. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this matchup for a lot of different reasons, but the main one is because it's that measuring stick that we've all been desperate to see.
So here's a question for you guys, and a question for the listeners as well. Going into this game, what would you consider success? Right? Obviously, winning would be the success, of course. But outside of just that, like, what do you want to see from this team that will sort of tick a box for you, say, like, right track, we're on the right track towards Qatar?
The result for me is not as important as I think the performance overall, like within the team. I want to see that Canada can go in there and instill some belief in themselves moving forward. And I think that would be a success to go on the pitch and be like, hey, we can play with a team like Uruguay. And obviously to do that, you need to be pretty solid defensively, have cohesion, obviously, and all of that. And if you can suffer a little bit and be okay suffering, then that gives me reason to be optimistic about this team moving forward, because we, in my opinion at least, moving forward in attack and the counterattack, I think Canada is good to create at least a handful of chances each game. When you have Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, Tejan Buchanan, Kyle Larin, I'll throw into that mix. They have the potential to create chances. I want to see what it looks like when they're under pressure and they're suffering a little bit. So, yeah, I'm looking more at the performance than I am at the result ultimately.
Jeff, how about
I'm looking at the opponent, and I'm seeing a lot of parallels with the Croatians and the Belgians. I mean, these are world-class players, but they're definitely at the tail end of their primes, if not out of their primes. I'm remiss to say that about the Kevin De Bruyne's of the world, but there are some parallels here. Obviously, it's a higher level of opponent. You guys sold me on that, but I do like the idea of what this means going into the Belgians and the Croatians, right? Like, if we can handle Nunez, Suarez, and Valverde, who's to say we can't nullify the Modrics and the De Bruynes of the world, right? So there's a distinct through line from this that I really, really like. So I'd like to see, if not a win, I'd like to see that midfield battle be something that Canada can use as ammunition going into the group stage of the World Cup.
Fair enough. I mean, Kevin De Bruyne, I think, is next level.
And
not out of prime. If you've seen him recently, he ain't out of prime.
Oh no, he's one of the best players in the world. But come on,
he scored a ridiculous goal on.
He's ridiculous.
Croatia is a good parallel, though. Croatia is a good parallel because they are the aging squad. I think, like Uruguay, Croatia have a handful of players who are very recognizable, and then the rest of the squad are, they're good players, but they're not necessarily household commodities. Belgium is a different breed, different animal. Belgium has 11 players.
I have questions about their defending in terms of how we can maybe get at them at pace, but we're not talking about Belgium right now. Not yet. We still got a month ago.
That'll be a fun episode. Exactly.
Absolutely. But I think I think what I would want to see out of this game is similar to what you're talking about, Mike. I want to see that they have some tactical competency against Uruguay. I know we're going to see possession of the ball, but I don't want it to feel like a Man City, a Man City game against Burnley. I don't want it to be like we're conceding the ball and we absolutely have no chance of winning it back. Right. Like what I want to see is tactical competency and being able to give possession away, but be able to put in traps to win the ball back and then spring us on the counter. And that's what I'm going to look for more than, hey, do we end up winning this game? If we win the game, great. Of course, obviously that's a massive feather in your cap going into the World Cup. But if you can get a solid 60, 65 minutes out of your starting 11 where they look like they are handling this team and don't feel overawed and don't get overwhelmed within the first, say, 15 to 20 minutes of playing a Darwin Nunez and a Luis Suarez, then I will consider some success there.
Fair.
Absolutely.
Very fair.
Yeah. And overall, I guess in terms of this game, but also the Qatar game and looking at it as a whole, what do you consider success in this entire window? Like, is it about just getting the 11 minutes? Is it blooding in some players that we're thinking about maybe as those extra spots? What does success in this window look like for you?
This is segue bait. I see what you're doing here. I mean, you know my answer already. It was blood. Like I thought this was about filling holes in the roster, but you've made a very strong case for testing best 11 against higher competition. So I'm not entirely sure what success is. I think it's playing games and getting on that plane to Qatar with good vibes FC. However that happens.
Yeah, I think it's accomplishing as much as you possibly can in as little time as possible, right? And you want to see all of the above. I want to see Luca Kolyosho's debut. I really want to see that. I'm emphatic about it, actually. And then I also want to see the best 11 get some minutes together as they inch closer to this is their penultimate friendly. Like, this is their second last friendly match that they'll play before the World Cup. So they need to obviously go out on a high note, because you don't want to be heading into that game against Japan after being blown out 4-0, right? You want to put in a performance that makes you enthusiastic and optimistic about this team and the vibes, as you mentioned, Jeff. Like, getting onto that plane and going to Qatar with good vibes, you need performances like this. So I want to see that happen as well. So yeah, I'd say, like I said, accomplishing as much as possible in very little time. That's what I would consider a successful window.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think also getting Waterman, getting Corbanu minutes as well as Kolyosho, I think is important as well, even if you're not going to end up putting them on the plane to Qatar, because it's telling them that, look, you're a part of this. Okay, yes, you didn't get in this time around. It just wasn't your time, but your time is coming, and it's coming quickly. And it keeps them hungry and keeps them working at their clubs for after the World Cup. Because it's going to be a quick turnaround to a Gold Cup to then now we're starting talking about getting ready for 2026. So, from that perspective, I think there is some value in also getting those players minutes as well. Go ahead, Mike.
The one difference between the Kolyoshos and the Watermans and the Corbanu is that Kolyosho still has the opportunity to say goodbye to this federation and go to 3 different other federations. Waterman and Corbanu they're not going anywhere. And I think inviting him to this camp may send that message already as to what you're alluding to, Mike. It's just having them part of this mix as they're so close to the World Cup and already be like the reminder that they're going to be part of the program in the future moving forward. Kolyosho is a different story because I think you really need to sell him on it.
Oh, I think he needs to play. I do. I 100% agree with you. I think he needs to play against Uruguay.
Do it.
Well, I don't think the friendly doesn't cap tie you.
You can't cap tie.
You can't cap tie now. Not until an official con. So basically, they couldn't cap time until the World Cup. They gotta. This is your chance to get in, play minutes, and then let's just segue right into it in terms of maybe getting your plane ticket to Qatar. Yep. So we're gonna talk about just who we think should be on that plane. I think we have a pretty established 22, right? Like pretty much, that's pretty locked. I'll read them out. And if anybody has any sort of disagreement on the name, put your hand up and we'll sort of go through that with you. But at goalkeeper, it's Borjan, Crepo, and St. Clair. I don't think there's any. Yeah, I didn't think so.
No debate.
The defenders, we got Adekube, Johnston. Again, both we just mentioned in this podcast are pretty much undroppable, so they're coming. Scott Kennedy. Actually, might put my hand up for that, and I'll explain in a second. I have Daniil Henry going. I know some of you guys don't.
No, I want Daniil there.
You want Daniil there, Mike?
Absolutely.
Off merit, I don't think he should deserve to be there. But based on the comments that John Herdman said and how important he is to this team in the locker room, and the fact that he is with the team currently, and despite the fact he's not healthy enough to play, I think that speaks volumes, and he will be in Qatar, even though I'm not sure he earned it down the stretch here.
I agree with you, but I have him on the list as going. I'm actually taking, I know you gave me a list, Mike, but I've actually added him in as a defender, so I think they're taking more defenders. Richie Larea, Steven Vittoria, and we've got Kamal Miller.
100%, 100.
So no. Okay, so we have a little star beside Daniil, but aside from that, everybody.
And Scott Kennedy, you said.
You put Kennedy
that's the one thing with Scott Kennedy is like, I know he's back with his club in Germany, but again, it's the same thing. He's not playing regularly. So that would be my only sort of maybe not. And that's where maybe Joel Waterman sneaks in.
Maybe.
Yeah, but he's with the team right now.
He is with the team right now. That is true. And they do, and he does, and John Herdman has spoken quite openly about wanting to have a left foot center back, right? So
he's on the plane.
And it's kind of that Daniil Henry kind of thing where he was with this team throughout qualifying and played important matches for this team as well. So I think he has a leg up, but I do take your point where he is definitely in the lower tier of that.
Yeah, fair enough. Midfield, we'll move on to the midfield. Stefan Eustáquio, Jonathan Osorio, Mark Anthony Kaye, Ishmael Kone. I think at this point, Ishmael Kone, unless something incredible, like he's going. Sam Piet. And Atiba Hutchinson is on this as a lock if he's fit.
Even if he isn't, just bring him along for the buffet. Yeah.
Fair enough, but then you're going to have to replace him with somebody. So we'll talk about that in a second, okay?
Yeah.
So put an asterisk beside him, and only because we're not sure of his fitness, okay? But forwards, Tajon Buchanan, Justin David.
Did you do Weatherspoon? You didn't do you skipped.
Oh no, I took Weatherspoon. I personally took Weatherspoon out. So I'll put my hand up and say I have Weatherspoon out.
No, I want him in there. I think
you want him in there. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
You think he's in there?
Player.
I personally think he's in there because the team made note of the fact that he is injured, and that's why he's not available for the camp when they didn't do that for some other emissions in the camp.
100%. Yeah. So 100%.
I think they do value him, and John Herdman values him to a certain extent. And again, he played a role for this team in qualifying.
Okay, so right now that would leave us with with 23 right now. You're going to keep Daniil in, or would you take him out?
I'm ride or die with Daniil Henry, man. He's going to Qatar. I riot. So
he's going to go. That if we're predicting it, yes. If I'm choosing my best 11, he doesn't go. But if we're predicting it, he's going to go.
Okay, fair enough.
He's not going to last for all 90 minutes. Just put him on for the first 20, get him his red card.
Okay, fair enough. So we're saying David Wotherspoon is going to Qatar. Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Forward, Tajon, Jonathan David, Junior Hoylett, Kyle Larin, Ike Ugbo.
No Cavallini. Wow.
So that's the one area. So I have a bubble of forwards here who I've made a list of. And this is just strikers. So I have Cavallini. You have Andreas Brim, who made his appearance. And then you have, I threw in a wild card here, and I said Daniel Jebison.
Wow. I thought you were going to say Akinola, but no.
No, I was not going. The reason why is because Herdman left that door open in speaking to media. He said that maybe we'll see at the World Cup if Daniel Jebison earns the opportunity. He said he's committed to England right now, but he also said that Jebison has voiced that he one day wants to play for Canada. And then he left the door open for a potential World Cup invite. His words, not mine. And then if Jebison earns it. So the reason why...
If he wanted to go, he should be at this camp now.
Yeah, but he's also...
I know he's with the England U20s. I get that.
But he's also at the range where I think he's good enough to walk on to a World Cup team for Canada. If that means getting him for the future.
Sure.
Right? If that means you lock up Daniel Jebison for the next 14 years, you bring him to the World Cup.
I agree. I think I'm willing.
Okay. So all right. So we're gonna have to pick. We're gonna have to pick like.
He doesn't. Just to make that clear. But I did want to throw it out there for the chaos.
Sure. Okay. We'll throw it out there for the chaos. Okay. So now so technically with this, the way that we have it right now, we have 23 players on the roster. Okay. 23 officially tickets booked. They are going, which means then we have 3 additional spots to fill. Okay. Assuming Atiba's healthy and he's fine, that makes your 23. Okay. So now you have 3 more players to take to the World Cup. Who are you taking? JP
and Cavallini.
You're taking Cavallini? Okay.
Yeah, why not? Good soldier. Newell or Singh, go.
So I'll give my 3. So mine comes out if Jebison, for whatever reason, says he wants to come to the World Cup, he's going to the World Cup.
Yep.
So it'd be between Jebison and Cavallini for me. One of the two.
Okay.
Right.
And
So
you
we'll
take
count them as
Jebison?
one. I would take Jebison for sure.
Okay.
So we'll count those guys as one. The next one for me is Luka Koleosho.
Okay.
For the same reason, you cap tie this kid because this kid is special. He is so good.
Yeah, I agree with both of those shouts.
So if he's willing to come and cap tie himself to Canada, you put him on that plane and fly him first class. I don't care. Do whatever it takes to get him committed to Canada. The last one for me there's 2 that I'm debating between. Depends what position I think Herdman wants to go. It's Cornelius and Liam. If he wants another flexible winger who's shown he can play wing back, you go Liam Millar. If you want to solidify your center back position, you go Derek Cornelius because he has been invited to multiple camps. He knows this men's national team. He's played minutes for this men's national team during World Cup qualifying.
Yeah.
It's one or the other.
Okay. Fair enough, JP, and you got 2 more. You already got Cavallini.
I agree with. I would say Cavallini. What's his face? Koleosho. Depending. So I do the same split. I would say. What was your second guy? Your second guy was.
I got Cavallini, Jebison, Koleosho.
Yeah. Koleosho's 1. Cavallini / Jebison, and I will go straight to Cornelius. I want Cornelius on the plane. Good soldier, capable center back. Sorry, Waterman. I'm done. We're done here.
Okay, fair enough. Done with you, Waterman. No. Okay, so my final 3 then. I actually have Lucas Cavallini going. And I think that is, again, that loyalty aspect that John Herdman has talked about quite a bit. Also, I don't know how serious Jebison is about signing for the national team. Like, I really don't. So I'm not. If he comes out after this camp and says, yes, I want to play for Canada. Okay, I see your point, Mike. Yes, absolutely. You cap tie him and you lock him down for the rest of his life.
Exactly.
He can still file a one-time switch, but like, yes, you take him. But as of right now, the way I have to see it in the world of prism of reality. And the prism of reality is Daniel Jebison is playing for the England U20s and not with Canada right now. So Lucas Cavallini's on the plane. Koleosho is definitely the second player on the plane. And then I had a bit of a tussle between Miller, Corbanu, Waterman, and Andreas Brim. I think you have enough defenders. I really don't think you need to necessarily have Cornelius there, but
bold statement. Bold.
I know that's why I don't have him on the plane. I was flipping, but that's why I don't have him on the plane. So I am taking Liam Millar.
Cool.
Again, to me, it's like a flip a coin between him and Corbanu, really. I actually think Corbanu gives you more attacking wise. But I again, that tactical flexibility that Mike talked about played into my mind. So that's why he gets the nod over Corbanu. So I have Cavallini, Koleosho, and Millar on the plane with the rest of the boys. And we'll see how wrong we are in a couple months when they release the roster before the Japan friendly.
I'm going to have to miss Panini time, unfortunately, because we're going a bit late, and I only booked an hour, and I'm on the clock, boys. So I will have to take my leave of you now.
Fair enough.
But enjoy Panini time, and I will be sure to watch it when I take my next break from this nonsense. So we will see you later. See you next week.
All right, buddy.
It was lovely seeing you all, and have a great rest of the show, dudes.
All right, take care.
Cheers,
keep cutting that movie. All right. So there you go. That is the 26th. The Toronto Till I Die 26 going to Qatar. So just to recap really quickly, that's Borjan, Kripo, St. Clair, Adekube, Johnston, Kennedy, Henry, Larea, Vittoria, Miller, Estacio, Osorio, Kay, Kone, Piet, Hutchison, Witherspoon, Buchanan, David, Hoylett, Larin, Ugbo with Cavallini / Jebison. We'll see. Koleosho and Millar going.
I love the chaos.
Yeah, fair enough. Hey, look, again, if he commits, sure, absolutely. Let's do it. All right. Fun time. Hey, so this is me just wanting to have a little fun. I am becoming a bit of a Panini nerd. So I have grabbed the World Cup sticker album. It's the first time I'm doing it. I know a lot of you guys do that out there. Mike, do you do any of the stickers? Do you collect any of the stickers?
I haven't, to be honest with you. I've seen it going around, and I haven't been too tempted yet.
No, fair enough. This is something I've picked up in the last year, and I'm starting to collect stickers right now. So really all I'm doing is just having a little fun. I'm going to open up 3 packs, and I'm going to see if I can put together a really good 5-a-side team out of the packs that I open up. So I'm going to do that really quickly. I've got my 3 packs here. So I'm going to open them up. I'll show you each player I get out of the pack. But from there, I'll see if I can put together a 5-a-side team. And Mike, I'll take your expertise on who I should be putting on this team. All right, cool. So straight out of the pack, I got Omid Nukfaran from Iran. So I got a defender. All right. You get these like teams. You get the some classic team stickers. They won't count for players. I'm not like pulling out Franz Beckenbauer or anything like that into my 5, so that's okay. I got De Bruyne.
Oh, is he going to make the 5-a-side team?
We'll see. But we've got De Bruyne there. I got one of the stadiums, so that's obviously not going to be counting. And I got Mason Mount. So not the worst opening on the first pack there. So let's go.
How many of these packs do you have?
I bought a box. So you got 250 stickers is a lot. But I'm actually really enjoying it. So shout out Breakaway Sports and Ancaster for hooking me up. Okay, we've got another pack open. So I've got another stadium. So we'll move that on. Ooh, this is cool. I got Ederson. So okay. If I feel like putting a goalkeeper,
he'd be a great 5-a-side keeper.
Yeah, I know. I'm starting to get a great 5-a-side team here. I got Dennis Zakaria. So I got another decent midfielder there as well. I got Matthew Ryan. So I'm getting some goalkeeper options here if I want to do that from Australia. And I got another goalkeeper who we're going to probably see tomorrow in Sergio Roget from Uruguay. So
burn it.
Yeah. All right. So that is that pack. Okay. Here's the last pack, and then I'll make my team here. If there's any comments there, anybody thinks there's players I should put in or leave out, let me know. This is
Access to Vivo saying he'd rather see the superhero talk that we did. I don't know. Were you on that episode when we did
I was not, but I listened to it, but I was not on that chat. All right. Christopher Nkunu. Actually, this is pretty dope. Actually, I'm really high on him. So that is cool. I got Gonzalo Queiroz from Portugal. So I got myself another attacker there. Stefan Bakone from Cameroon. So again, this is now a pack with a full attackers. I got another Belgian and Yannick Carrasco here.
Played some left wing back the other day. I saw that.
I know. I think he played that when he was at Atletico a lot. And Mbappe.
Ooh.
I got Mbappe. Okay. So I'm gonna put together my 5-a-side team. All right. I don't know. Do I want to go goalkeeper? Yeah, I'm gonna go goalkeeper because why not? Okay.
I'll guess 3 of them. It's okay. Ederson, De Bruyne, and Mbappe.
Oh, yeah, well, it's a hard one there. Yeah, of course. I'm just gonna put Nkunu there. All right, so that's 4, and I need one more. Who do I want? Okay, there you go. I'm gonna go 4 and a keeper. So my five-a-side squad is going to be Ederson in goal / essentially he can be a midfielder / sweeper keeper defender anyway. De Bruyne, Mbappe, I'm going in Kunu and Dennis Zakaria in midfield. So I want a little bit of midfield grit, but a lot of attacking flair. So there's my Penny five-a-side team. Any comments?
Would that five-a-side team beat Canada's best five-a-side team?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Who would
funny
Canada's
enough, I've
best
opened up the
five-a-side
pack, so I do have Alphonso Davies, and I do have Kamal Miller, and I have Crepeau in goal.
Who would their best five-a-side team be?
Who would Canada's be best five-a-side team? Okay, so in goal, I actually in a five-a-side would go with Crepeau over Borjan. If
Okay.
we're going to play a goalkeeper, which I would play as a sweeper keeper, I'd probably have Johnston, Estacio, and Davies with David up top.
Johnson, Isaki. Okay, I'm going all chaos here, and I'm going no defender. So give me Crepeau in goal. I actually agree with you. And then I'll go Davies, Buchanan. I'd throw Junior Hoylett into that mix.
Okay.
And then Jonathan David.
That's pretty solid. That is a pretty solid fight.
Give me that five-a-side team.
Yeah, I need to have at least one defender in there. Like I know Tejan. Oh, I know, but like I mean, defending Alistair Johnson defender versus Tejan defender, right? And I've got enough. I think I've got enough attacking flair with Davies and David connecting on that side.
I got the futsal vibes going, man. That's all I'm focused on. Mo Farsi. Throw some Mo Farsi.
Or Mo Farsi. Look, the way he's playing for Columbus Crew 2. Damn. Yeah, he's playing really well. Thank you for indulging me in that. I know that's not everybody's favorite, but I thought it would be a little fun.
If you're up, I liked it.
Yeah, exactly. If anybody's collecting stickers out there, let me know. Hit me up at Football Saves on the Bird Box. Let me know who you got, if you got doubles, all that kind of good stuff. We'll quickly move into burning questions here and close the show. All right. So first one is from Jordan. And he's asking, should Canada be hosting more youth camps in conjunction with the senior team? So this is something quite common in world football where the senior team plays and like your U20s are also playing games as well for those players that are about to make the jump into the senior team. And I think this is in the prism of, maybe having some players that are on the bubble that are younger, trying to decide whether they choose Canada or not. So do you think Canada should be hosting more U20 camps in conjunction with the senior team?
I do. And saying I do, we've come a long way because we've just a couple of years ago, we're talking about hardly making up a senior team. But now we have depth, and more depth. And you think back to the Canada U20 performance at the CONCACAF there, and it was very underwhelming. They really underperformed. And I think a big reason for that is because they did not spend a lot of time together. First time this team is sort of thrown together. Now, if you have more of the younger camps in conjunction with the senior camps, you have the whole group coming together and you have an opportunity to, nurture and develop players the way that the Canadian national team would like to develop them. So I would like to see that just because I think it makes Canada a more competitive federation overall. And I know that, whoever sent in the question, their point was they don't want to lose dual nationals. I'm not sure how much that necessarily helps at this stage because I think Canada is really far behind in terms of their youth system. I don't think playing for Canada's U21 team is as appealing as playing for England's U21 team, but it at least gets them in the same environment, and it's a step up. So it's just like having an academy, in my opinion, and I think you should utilize that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there should be opportunities. I mean, like going to the TFC2 game this past weekend, like Philadelphia Union 2 they had mainly an academy squad, and that's because a lot of their guys that are in Philadelphia Union 2 were part of the U.S. men's national team U20 camp that was running in conjunction with the senior camp. So, those opportunities to allow those players to, like you said, get into the environment, play, play together and build some cohesion with each other as an age cohort that might jump to the senior level is important, right? And again, it's just embedding you further into the program.
And the way that, just using TFC as an example, the way that TFC and TFC2 train, they train in the same facilities. They train on separate pitches. So the TFC2 team will train on the pitch that's adjacent to the one that the first team trains on. And then sometimes you'll have some TFC2 players, the ones who are performing and, or maybe TFC short in a position, whatever it is, they'll come over and they'll train with the first team. So they're not necessarily always training together, but just having them in that same environment, I think that would go a long way in terms of the overall development together and having that cohesion. And as I mentioned, for me, the biggest thing is just having that U20 team prepared for major tournaments, because, hey, look, the fact that they weren't prepared, that's what cost them a spot in the upcoming Olympics, right? If Canada is more prepared, I think they easily walk into the Olympics. But now it's you're gonna have to wait another 6 years before they get that chance.
Yeah, that's it's a disappointing thing at youth level, right? And I think there's opportunities there, and we'll see after the World Cup if that changes, because I think that desperately needs to change for some of the young players, especially as the CPL is starting to produce young professionals. They need a place to play from a national perspective. All right, next question is from Corey Brady. Just how much of a priority is it to get Luca Koleosho his first cap on Tuesday? We just talked about this quite a bit, but very, I think is where you would be going with that, Mike.
Yeah, I think so. As we've talked about on the show, I think the federation needs to do whatever they can at this point to look. I'm really, really high on this player. Like, he has potential to be so good. Is he on Alphonso Davies or Tajon Buchanan or players like that right now? No, but he has that potential, in my opinion, to be sort of that level of impact for this national team. He's the type of player that don't often come through Canada. You don't necessarily have the skilled wingers that essentially come through this federation. I know we have them in abundance to some extent right now, but Luka Koleosho is different in just the way that he plays. His touches are quicker, more refined, they're smaller, and he's rapidly fast. So I would love to see him come in and be part of this team moving forward. Chris is saying Corbeanu has that ability too, in a different way. Corbeanu is a skill, but he's got more flair, whereas Koleosho is more direct. There's something different about Koleosho. You can get that by just watching him for a few minutes. He is, and that's why I hope we see him, because I think he's going to excite a lot of people. Just again, the way that he plays. So
yeah, and I think Corbeanu is a pure winger, right? Like, he is a winger in the way that he plays at this current stage in his career. Obviously, that can develop and he can become a little bit more direct. But I do agree that there's been so much hype around Koleosho. It'd be interesting to see how he fits in with. I mean, we talk about the senior squad as if they're like a really old squad. The squad isn't that old, right? Like, he's going to get a chance to develop along a lot of these guys for a long time if he gets cap tied, right? So it's not like, he's getting in and then he's going to have to carry the load in the next window, right? Like, a lot of the players that are part of this core right now on the national team are going to be with this team for quite some time. So that's got to be exciting if you're a national team fan. And we'll wrap up with this last question here. This was asked by a ton of people, so I want to credit to just one person because a lot of people asked this question, but it was just around, will John Herdman's, and we talked about it, loyalty cost us in Qatar? And I'll answer just really quickly, just in terms of how do you determine cost us? Like, what does that necessarily mean? I mean, not getting out of the first round, to me, it's more about, I think it's a reasonable thing for him to reward those who have committed to the program back in when he took over in 2018 and really sort of put the mark down in 2019, and then coming through the pandemic and going through it's not just the octo, right? It's a year. It's a year that these guys put in playing at, on essentially what almost look like mini pitches in Bradenton, Florida against the U.S. Virgin Islands, right? Like I don't think it will cost us. I think if anything, all it does is strengthen the sort of mission in the core of the team. And that only serves you well going forward. Will it make complete sense in Qatar all the time, like around players like Neil Henry, who may be out of form per se, or a Scott Kennedy who may be out of form potentially? But I think there's a bigger picture here than just Qatar, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Like it's a delicate balance, right? Because on the one hand, their biggest strength is that brotherhood that we often hear Herdman and the team and hey, us. I know it's becoming kind of cliche at this point, but yeah, man, it's bang on. Like there is the brotherhood here, and that's what has been sort of the driving force for Canada throughout this World Cup qualifying run. But at the same time, you're going to a World Cup. Are you going to use sort of what got you here to this point, or are you going to try and take the next level with some of these players? There's that balance, and then some decisions you're going to have to steer the latter and go with what I believe is the next level, and that means cutting some ties with some players, or not necessarily cutting some ties, but leaving some guys behind that perhaps maybe got you here. But on the other hand, you're going to have players like a Daniel Henry who are just too valuable to, in some light, and I say that because I chuckle because on the pitch, I don't think Daniel Henry has that same value anymore, but within the locker room, he does. So yeah, he has some really tough decisions to make, and either way, they're going to be scrutinized, and maybe if all goes well, they'll be praised. But yeah, I don't know if it'll cost us necessarily because our expectations, as you're alluding to, Mike, are pretty low right now, realistically, heading into our first World Cup since 1986.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I don't necessarily believe that we have to be on the we're just happy to be here train. I do think it's okay to have some expectations of this team performing well and scoring a goal, and obviously, and potentially taking 3 points from one of these three teams. But to say it's going to cost us, I think is a little short-sighted in terms of the overall goal here, right? The goal is not to just make this World Cup and then just be okay because we host the next World Cup. It's to start to build a consistent sort of pipeline of going to the World Cup on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think you sort of answered what Alexis's question there, my statement, whatever you want to call it, was there. Yeah, this is like Qatar's step one here in terms of what this massive overhaul is. John Herdman said like it takes federations 15 to 20 years to get to where they want to be, and Qatar is really just that first step. So you got to look at it through sort of that lens, is that as much as we like to joke, let's like to talk about Canada being a footballing nation and them being competitors for this World Cup, like this is their first World Cup in over 30 years. This is the first time they've defied expectations. Heck, they didn't even have jerseys ready because their own federation didn't believe that they would make it to this point.
Yeah.
Right. They're defying everyone's expectations. And hopefully this World Cup is just something they can sort of build off of. And heck, while we're in it, I'll be cheering on Canada as much as I can and, talking about how Canada can make it out of the group. But the reality is that this is step one in sort of this whole process. And Axis is saying, there's no guarantee that we're ever going to return to the World Cup. Well,
kind of do. At least one.
There's one more guarantee, and that's 4 more years. So looking at it through that lens, and also this is a different Canada, and like this is a Canada that they breeze through qualifying because they're so much better than the Hondurases, the Panamas, the Costa Ricas now at this point of where we are now. They're in the same level as the Mexicos, the United States. They're a tier above everyone else. There's no guarantee, you're right, but heading into the next cycle of qualifying in 8 years, whenever that is, 5 years, Canada is going to be one of the favorites to make it out of their group, and that's how much it has. It's changed. So this is a building block towards, I think, something much bigger.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you for everybody for submitting your questions this week, for burning questions. There were a lot of them. Obviously, the national team is a hot topic amongst a lot of you, so we appreciate you dropping those questions in. And thank you for listening to another episode of Toronto Till I Die. We'll be back on the TFC grind next week, reviewing the last home match of the season against Miami. It feels like the season has flown by, but we are at the last home game before they take on Philly to end the season. And we're going to start a position breakdown of the roster, whose stock went up, whose has gone down over the season.
Love the offseason.
Yeah, and why they shouldn't stay on the roster for the 2023 season. And finally, we'd love some reviews for the pod. So give us a like and review on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. That would be obviously a big help for us. But that's it for the show. For Mike Singh, for Jeffrey P. Nesker, I'm Mike Newell. See you all next week. Peace.
And wait, and baby, I'm TFC till I die.